New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Good morning. Good morning to you, Growing Edge Live. Allie Benjamin here. It is my honor and privilege and blessing to be live here on New Thought Media Network. We've got an amazing show lined up and an amazing guest, Martha Creek. I can't wait for you to meet her. I know lots of you already know her. She's hard to miss. She's got such an amazing dynamic presence and a big heart. And so super excited today. I'm excited every Monday when I introduce another guest, another friend, another dynamic soul. Here at Growing Edge Live, I interview soul-centered individuals that are pouring their time, their talent, their energy, their resources into their lives, into life, to make the world a better place. These people are touching hearts, touching minds, touching lives in ways that are so uplifting and inspiring. And it's just everyday life. It's some of the people I interview don't see themselves as thought leaders or necessarily deeply spiritual, but they are. They just do things that crack people's hearts open. And so stay tuned for the whole rest of the year. I have an amazing lineup through December of people that I know are going to touch you and help you to maybe spread your wings a little bit more as you start to take more interest in your own vision and dreams and life. So welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm so happy you're here. And I trust that there's going to be something today. Maybe it's something I say. Maybe it's one of the wonderful infomercials that you see. And maybe, probably, more than likely, it's going to be Martha Creek. So before we introduce Martha, I usually start with a segment that I call Ask Allie. Now, I didn't come up with I didn't really look for a question today. No one sent me in an Ask Allie question, but a lot of people that I come across ask this kind of question, or a question similar to this one. How can I have a deeper, more intimate spiritual experience? I want to have a closer walk with God. I want to be in touch with my life. I want to feel on fire with spirit. There's so much that I have been learning and studying, and now I want to put it into my life. How do I do it? What is that? What's the process? Is there a process? Well, the answer is we all have different ways, different paths, and there's a million trillion different ways of feeling like you're more connected to your life, or you're having a closer walk with the divine. And so I'll share what I do. This is what I have done for several years now that has been so foundational for me. I have for many, many years started every morning with silence, meditation, simply being still and trying to not let one of my thoughts, and I have millions of thoughts that try and grab my attention, but simply allow those thoughts to come and go and simply just be the witness of them. So I spend a few minutes, not long, and I'm usually still laying in bed, and I simply just wake up and greet the day and see these lots of thoughts that come and just let them go and know that there'll be time to come back to those. But I want to be present. because that's really what awakening is all about. That's what having a closer relationship with God or your soul or your higher self is all about. It's being present. It's being still inside the mind. It's starting to be aware of how whatever's going on inside seems to reflect and happen on the outside. So when I start with a moment, a couple minutes of quiet in the morning, when I draw my attention inwards, knowing that this is where I meet God, this is where I meet myself, this is where I start each day. When I can enter in to each new day with that kind of sweetness and softness, then I'm more prepared for what happens next. And what happens next is usually, all the thoughts of things that I want to do that day, people that I may be interacting with, my to-do lists, if I have one, all of that seems to come in. But even though that comes in, having a moment of silence every morning sort of gets me prepared. It puts a little distance between my essential self, my soulful self, and the rest of the stuff, the story, the play of life, because that can be so seducing, so alluring. And it's fun to mingle and dance and be in the story and be co-creating. But it's also so powerful to be at home, belong to yourself, and to develop that connection, that relationship. Because the relationship that we think is a relationship with God is really a deeper relationship with ourselves. And I'm really excited at the moment. I'm about to present a workshop at the affiliated New Thought Network annual retreat at Unity Village. Next weekend it starts. I can't wait. Well, actually next Monday. I'm introducing a way of praying with movement, with the body. And so I've put a lot of time and energy into having a closer relationship to my physical body. And I encourage you to do the same. So we, as many of us study in New Thought, we're triune in nature. We're threefold. We're a body, we're a thinking mind, and then we're this ineffable spark, this spirit. We're omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. And so as we start to contemplate this, and this could be a really wonderful thing to spend some time each morning contemplating, your triune nature, or your threefold nature, your omniscience, your ability to tune in to the divine mind, your omnipresence, your physical body, your soulful body, the body of the universe. So we've got this amazing omniscience, this ability to have this local mind and then access to the greater mind. We're this omnipresence, we're this physical body, but we're also part of the one body of the universe. And then we're this omnipotence, this amazing power, this ineffable spark. I call it love, because that's how I feel this power in my body. It feels like a tremendous ecstatic surge of love for life. And I think that's probably the closest thing that I would say God is. So as we start to contemplate these three aspects, these three dimensions of our being, we become intimately connected, not only to what we call God, but what we call this physical world, and what we call us, our higher self, our physical body, and then our ego and our essence, this play, this dance, this mingling of who we are as a spiritual being, our essential self, and who we are as a physical being, this wonderful body. So we begin to become integrated. We integrate our thinking mind, our heart and our emotions, and then our physical body and our instincts and our intuition. And as we start to embrace ourselves as three-centered beings, we have three centers of intelligence. This is what the Enneagram teaches us. A lot of ancient wisdom and systems talk about this, us having three centers of intelligence, neural cells in our brain, in our heart, in our gut, and we start to move in the world, in our life, with all of this awareness around there's some kind of connection between the head, the heart, and the gut. And how can I be more mindful of this? How can I bring more coherence to these three parts of my physical, spiritual nature, psycho-spiritual nature? How can I have greater self-awareness here? So when I'm going about my everyday life, when I'm having lunch with a friend, when I'm doing my work, when I'm by myself, how can I make good decisions, bearing in mind, bearing in heart, instinctually? How can I have all of these elements in coherence, in alignment? Why is this important? So that we're not making decisions just based on our intellect, or just based on our emotions, or just based on our gut, although that's probably the wisest one. But we're bringing it all together so that we can make decisions that are going to help us evolve and deepen into our true nature and deepen into that relationship with the divine. So I know there wasn't one person that sent me a question, but to all of you that have asked me about living a more spiritual life, or living more connected, or awake, or whatever you want to call it, I hope this has helped. It helps me, and it also helps just to talk about it and to hear myself talking about it. I begin to see that I know and feel and sense more than I realize. So thank you to all of you that have sent in questions. And if you have a question for me, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email at growingedgelive.com, or drop a message in the chat here if you're watching live, either on Facebook or here on YouTube. So send me a question. Okay, now for my most favorite part. I am just so delighted to be introducing maybe some of you for the very first time to my dear beloved friend of many years now. We've worked together on boards, we've worked together doing events, we've been together in times of deep sorrow, deep loss of family members, and creating new things, of like busting the roof off of old paradigms. We've been there together and walked these kinds of paths together. And so Martha Creek, Reverend Dr. Martha Creek, is an ordained minister. I'm going to read her bio because it's just really good. Martha is widely known as known in New Thought. Martha's training approach, deep inner work as an adventure with a sense of curiosity and wonder. A master of the art of right questioning, she calls forth the most stubborn and self-defeating patterns to create a new way of being, literally. Ordained in religious science and divine science, Martha has served as Emerson Theological Institute Seminary, Masters and I just went off my script here. Martha has served as Great Lakes Unity Consultant and is a member of Unity Institute faculty, which will be together next week at Unity Village. Can't wait. She has attended Emerson Theological Seminary and has a master's and a doctorate. Byron KT School for the Work, which she's masterful at, and Hoffman Institute. She is a Healthy Congregations facilitator and trainer, and you can see more at marthacreek.com. So welcome, Martha. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Allie. It's an absolute privilege. And I've been looking forward to this ever since you asked me. And I'm also thrilled that you're doing this, honey, that, my mission is pretty clear, and it is to serve those who serve. So I sincerely and with great confidence, a strange kind of something beyond faith confidence, know that what we're doing here is exactly that, serving those who serve. And I'm committed to getting empowered teachings to the whole of the world, and Growing Edge Live and Ask Allie and this whatever we can do together is doing that. So I uplift this very message. Whoever hears this, it's going to be timely, and something that's going to be a watering of our souls, of a watering of the seeds that's been planted many eons or lifetimes ago, even as depending on what you believe.
Yeah. And it is, because we always know, you and I know, that we're always creating something wherever we are and whatever we're doing. And I chose the title Growing Edge Live because there is this feeling of growth and evolution and planting seeds. And you and I, as ministers, we both have this calling to keep trying to help people to find their way. And so I know there'll be something today that will inspire.
Yeah,
So
I think that's an important distinction too, Allie, as we launch into this, that I think that's how you believe. I don't know, but I see minister as a verb, not a noun. And I have for my whole life. I had a very clear knowing as a young child that I'm here to minister. And it wasn't a minister as a profession, although that's how it's ended up, but it was minister as a verb. And I believe that we're here as ministers, as ministering as a verb and doing what we can. And those of us that are seekers, I mean, we have turned over every rock and stone and log that we can come across to see what's under it. What can we learn? And the wisest people I know are still enrolled in something. We're still students. We're still learning. We're still looking for insight and contemplation and reflection and a real application of our spiritual principles. And that can be even a bitter pill sometimes. Like I was in a workshop yesterday, and those people in there have been at it like us for decades and enrolled in one more thing. And she's like, OMG, like how much of this is left? Like you would think that after we've done this, for some of us 50 years, that we're suddenly going to be enlightened, or it's kind of have a tick box exercise. We kind of cross the finish line, versus understanding it's in this human form with the complexities of patterning and of emotions and the thought processes and all the dimensions that you speak very clearly about, honey, that as long as we're in skin, as long as we're alive here, we've got some work to do. And hopefully, prayerfully, it won't have to be work out of a sense of drudgery, like, oh, I've got so much work to do, but something with a little more tail wag. I'm still here. I'm in skin, and there's some work to do.
Yeah, gosh, when you're saying that, I was just sort of going through my ministerial path and ministering, and what does that look like? Has that looked like for me? And when you said tail wag, and you talk about people still taking classes, I'm like, yeah, I want my tail to be wagging more often. And that's what I feel for me currently at 61, that my tail is wagging more because I'm less driven by my story or my old story, and more driven by this need to be inquiring into what's next and who am I going to be next. And that's got my tail wagging more than trying to prove something or get somewhere or reach something. And so anyway, we can get more to the work that we're both doing. I want to know about you. Where were you just born as awake as you are, or how were you as a little one? You said you knew at an early age. What was your spiritual path? Were you religious? Were you spiritual? What happened?
Well, I don't, it depends on, who you're asking to define it, but I was aware. I have 2 or 3 defining moments, honey, in my life that started at a young age. And one was where some of the trauma, though, took place. That was not trauma like other people had trauma, but trauma to the soul, where I took on the responsibility of the world. And the thought was at 3 years old, I have a very clear memory of this, that I looked around the environment I was in, that was a safe environment, that was a loving environment, a family intact. It wasn't like we were fragmented. And I had a very clear thought that, oh, hell, I'm the oldest one here. So that's what I've taken on. So that's the role that I assumed. And a little part of me was like, oh my gosh, you're actually responsible for this whole unit here. And then, of course, that's played out over my life as being responsible for the classroom, or being responsible for a family unit, or being responsible for a congregation, or being responsible for a coursework, or whatever it is. And there's a lot of fulfillment in it. And particularly in the world we live in, you know, this exhaustion and hard work and all of that. I mean, it gets you some trophies. It can get us some trophies if we're not careful. And then the addiction to getting trophies, you know, can be its own bitter pill, versus how to do what we're here to do, and to bring all of our gifts and skills and talents to whatever we have, and not assume responsibility for it. And I'm undoing it, honey, as I go. I'm going back to that little part of myself. First of all, to let her see that it wasn't her responsibility at 3 to be the oldest one in the room, or to be the oldest one in the family. And it was natural and innocent for her to take that on. And there's still remnants of it. You know, there's still some burdening on that little part of me to do it. And I also don't want it to shut me down from doing things that really make my tail wag, and to continue to do things that are phenomenal. In fact, like I've got this uncommon stamina for life, honey, and for work. And that's somewhat pattern driven. It's also from a place in me that's more in integrity with what I'm doing and how I'm serving. And your words were brilliant and clear. And I'm doing it out of a fullness of what I am and what I have to offer, not a trying to prove something, or trying to achieve, you know, or to get ahead, or to compete, or those things that suck the very life out of us, really. So my family didn't go to church, and I wanted to go to church. So I asked my mother. Most people that interview with me when this comes up, I told my mom, hey, I want to go to church. And she said, in her very classic Virginia Creek way, we'll find you a way to church. If you want to go to church, you find a way to go to church. So I got on the phone and started calling the neighbors and asked them, do you go to church? Where do you go to church? Can I go to church with you? So that's how it started, honey. And I love my Sunday school teacher. And I didn't really believe the teaching. I didn't believe that God is mad at me or going to punish me, or that there was a God that I ought to be afraid of or kind of try to keep in favor of, or anything like that. I just, that wasn't true for me. And I didn't mind that they believed it. So I just took the part that I believed. And I got to read scripture, and my Sunday school teacher would ask me to memorize scripture, which was fun for me to do. And I related to the scriptures, and some of them are still with me. The ones I learned as a young girl, that's been helpful, like the 23rd Psalms. So, and the Lord's Prayer, even, like, to lead me not into the temptation of the mind. So I've had my own adaptations of those, and a lot of groundedness that's been served out of that. And I'm pretty committed not to put my religious or philosophical or theology or any of my beliefs. I'm very mindful not to put those off on other people.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's a personal journey, and that everybody's free to believe what they believe, and what I believe belongs to me. And I've spent decades looking at what do I actually believe versus what do I claim to believe, or what do I platitude my way, pretend to believe, or what did my family believe that may not actually be true for me. And not just for family and friends and colleagues, even New Thought. Like to see what are my actual convictions versus what do I claim my convictions to be.
Yeah. What are your actual convictions today?
For me to be and express all that I can be, and
Mm.
to know that it's an unfolding, infinite journey, that I won't ever arrive somewhere, and that people's belief systems are complex, that they're embedded in them. It's in their bones and bloods, that we have legacy beliefs and family beliefs, cultural beliefs, historical beliefs. And my conviction is to clarify my own and to define my own and to do my darndest not to put mine off on somebody else.
Mm. So basically, you're just a walking prayer. You're an answer to many prayers, just with that kind of awareness, consciousness, belief system. That's a beautiful thing. Um, Gosh,
Well, I
yeah,
hope so.
I know that. I mean, that's how I know you.
I
When
hope
was your first time in a New Thought church? When did that occur?
Well, as a kid, I knew I'm going to be a minister, and I said it when I was a kid, and it was funny. I mean, my family, whoever was there, actually laughed because they never heard any. There's no women ministers. Period. 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 So they thought it was a little funny till they realized I wasn't kidding, and then it was a little scary. Like, oh my, like she actually believes this. So I didn't say anything about it for years, decades even. But I knew when I turned 40, I was going to retire. I'm going to resign whatever position I'm in, whatever career and achievement I've made at 40, it's done. And I'll spend the rest of my life, whatever I live after 40, pursuing ministry professionally. So that was my course plan, and it fulfilled. So I started studying I started asking around then when it was coming up on time. Here's my beliefs, here's kind of what I think and believe, here's what I want to explore. And people would say, "Oh, your new thought. Oh, your new thought. Oh, your new thought." Or oh, your unity, or oh, your religious science, or something. So it was people that had more experience than me, listening to me, that pointed me in that direction. And I started to explore, and I had a true alignment for that the teachings were what I had what I'd already believed. It wasn't a belief I had to come into. It's what I already believed, which I believe we have more in common than with some of the fundamental teachings than some of us admit, about the power and the presence of God in all things, and that we are not separate from it ever. And there's some differences for us, that we were born in original grace, uh,
Mm,
and that we make mistakes and learn from them, and our soul's not at risk, however,
mm,
other
mm,
than through the suffering that um, we would have when we abandon our own soul, or hate ourselves or reject ourselves in some way, that we've got great suffering there, as well as the suffering, honey, in our human form. And I don't, I don't believe I'm not immune from it, my own human heartedness, nor do I believe anybody else is, even as we pretend. And I've done plenty of it myself, denying feelings, depressing, suppressing, disowning feelings, and pretending and saying it's all good and it's all good and it's all good. And I know, in you and I, through our journey together, honey, that I've said many times, and with you, nobody wants to be at a grave of the child going into the grave. And here it's all good.
mm.
So, in the absolute, it may be all good. But back here at the ranch, when I'm putting my child in a grave, I don't need to hear today that it's all good, because my heart has not caught up to that yet.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for you know for what you've just said and sharing that journey, and also, most importantly to me, being there for me when I did lose my child, and we had to just sit as friends with the enormity of that, and no words really. There was just the love and the hope for the future that we held together. So thank
Yeah.
you.
That's
All
an
right.
example, honey, of I had to come out of that, some of it, that I would have been trying to talk you out of that,
Right.
just a few years ago. I would have been trying to talk you out of grief.
Yeah. Yeah. And grief's a bittersweet path that all of us must traverse at some point in our world. So we're going to jump off for a second because we're going to have a little message from New Thought Media Network, and we'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Thanks, Martha.
Blessings, everybody. My name is Jafon Seeley. Could you imagine what is actually possible when we start honoring and recognizing our inherent worth, realizing that we are that which is assisting and co-creating our experience? And with that understanding, start recognizing that every human, every individual, everything that we interact with reflects that same inherent worth.
It's not about an adventure, it's about the atmosphere of the consciousness of adventure, the lifestyle of adventure. How many people would say that their lifestyle is adventurous?
My name is Lisa Benson. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and the author of Anchored in Bias, Fired Over White Tears. It's a book detailing my lived experiences with workplace bias and what fueled my passion for normalizing conversations about differences and creating safe spaces for everyone to bring the best version of themselves to life every day.
Okay, we're back. And I can see we've got quite a lively chat going on the side. We've got Jarrett and John and Cindy, Wayne, and I just want to say hi. So glad that you're here. And Jarrett, I did see your question and I tried to type it out really quickly so I can address it next week. And John and Cindy, oh, it's so good to see you here and to know that we're giving you a virtual hug and you're feeling it through all that we're saying. So we're going to get on with this juicy conversation. So Martha, I just so resonate with you. You know this. I'm always, I take time to share what's on my mind with you about how much I respect you, how much I see you, how much I appreciate you walking your talk and all of your mad wisdom and intellect that I've sat with you in meetings, business meetings, and church meetings, and so forth. You are just someone that is just like, you've got a special spot. You've got a way of being so present with people, of seeing people. You're listening. I can hear you listening right now. I can see you listening. I can feel you listening. You're taking it in, and that doesn't just wander off into the cosmos. It stays with you and you circle back around 5, 10, 15 years later to catch up on that same thought or that so you're a good listener, you're present with people, you've got a vast body of knowledge. Obviously, since you were a child, you've been you must have been the top of the class, the A student, the teacher's pet, and all of that. And that's the vibe I get from when you tell me some of the stories of your past. And so you've had this deep thirst for learning and knowledge and an intellect that can contain so much. I mean, you can go from topic to topic and be like the expert in the room. And it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up your skirt or something here, but I'm not. You're just kind of one of those unicorn people that has this stuff together. And I know that you've got so many facets to you, and I've only just described a couple, and I imagine if you had a different person here interviewing you, they would have a similar but different take on the vastness of who you are and the dimensionality of spirit that you reflect and represent. I just wanted to say that. I really wasn't going anywhere with that, but I just every time we get a chance to be on an interview like this, or be together in person, or work on a project together, I just feel like I'm with a master. And I tear up because it's not that I'm trying to get anything from you or, prove anything. I just truly feel that way. And I would imagine others do too. And so will you talk a little bit about some of the things you do currently? I know you've done so much over the course of your life, but what are some of the things that you're investing your time, talent, energy, love into that are at the growing edge, that are making a difference? Everything you do does, but currently.
Well, thank you, Allie. I receive it, honey. Your generosity, your spirit, and I love that you would even tear up. I say many, many times, if we're not all crying, we're not really listening. So I just love how that you were so present to that too. And I'm really am committed to that, honey. I'm convicted to live out the way you see me and to continue to grow myself in that. And I'm currently in an immersion of a work called No Bad Parts. And I spoke about it earlier, like going back to some of these parts of us that carried some burdens of our childhood and being hurt and afraid and not feeling safe. You spoke earlier about one of your qualities of self-preservation and all that. And that's true for all of us as humans, but on a spectrum. Some of us have more of it than others. So it's important to care for those things. And I'm one of the things about that. This is based on a book called No Bad Parts, and the author's Richard Schwartz, and the listeners can look it up and follow along. And there's loads and loads of information about it, and a lot of efficacy, like 40 years of working with this. And he references something that was already true for me. And it's interesting how I'm into something new that wasn't new to me. Like where through various leadership trainings or my own spiritual practice, or what we would say are our core values, how I want to show up in the world and what I want to do. And he refers to them as the self-leadership wheel, like this eight C's of self-leading. And he means self as a spiritual self, not as a big high-powered CEO, kick butt, take names type, but the self, the capital S self that we refer to in our spiritual circles as the highest, the seat of our consciousness, the part of us that can witness our thoughts, the thought patterns, the thought streams, that can witness intense emotion and the reasons for it, the cause and effect nature of that. And there's still a part of us that remains observant to that can be in intense emotions, watch intense thoughts, and know that there's still a part of me that's the observer, that is a part of me, but it's not who I am. It's a part of me, and it's not all of me. So I've immersed myself into that particular work, and the 8 C's of leadership include calmness. The first one is calmness. This speaks to a serenity. And we people in the program 12 steps pray this: God grant me the ability to change what I can, accept what I cannot change, and know the difference. So I believe whatever modalities that's worked for us over the years, if we really stay with that as a practice, that it deepens. It's not a tick box exercise, but a true application of how I can bring a deeper level of calmness or serenity to any circumstance. And I value that. So I cultivate that. And I want to be more of that in the world. And you see that, honey, and you witness that to me. That also, Allie, speaks to how much you value this. That this is also one of your own values. That we're going to have triggers and environmental, instinctual, automatic ways, extreme ways of responding to reacting to certain things. And we have a capacity, even with those triggers and what's in our bones and bloods and our legacy burdens and things like that, to be a little calmer. And if one of us can bring a little speck of calm to any situation, it benefits everybody, everything about the situation, which is basic New Thought teaching. I affect the environment I'm in. I have effect in the emotional units I'm in. I am co-causing, co-creating the realities of my life. So if I want and desire to be in a calmer life and have more calmness around me, then I've got some part of that, to be and express that. The second C is clarity. And we speak a lot about this. And I remember in my early days of this, when we were first doing mind treatments and learning to do mind treatments and prayer, clarity, 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 give me clarity, please, clarity, clarity, clarity. And it's worked, because it's clarity as described as the ability to perceive situations from a higher perspective. The ability to perceive situations with less distortion and with less of our extreme emotions and beliefs taken over. So a clarity, the ability to keep a little bit more objective, a little less subjected to a situation, a little more objective about a situation. And this really, really helps me, honey, to be able to do that. And one of the practices, somebody asked me for a talk title I'll be doing next month, and I used MGI, and I like little clever things like that, but it's like, make the most generous interpretation of somebody's action I can. Like when you do something and I know that's out of character for you, that's not characteristic of your behavior, for me to assume no ill intent on your part, to make the most generous interpretation of why you just did that, or why you use that tone, or that look you just gave me. And of course, not you, Allie, because I've never seen that in you, honey, but somebody in our lives, to make the most generous interpretation we can about that, if we look at it from a little higher perspective. Curiosity is the next one, though, and I think that's my superpower. That's also in my bio. It was interesting to hear that again. Like, I really do live and desire to live a strong, devoted desire to live as if I don't know everything. Like, I've got to stay curious. I want to learn something. I want to learn from people and from what they're studying and how they're showing up in the world. So I've got a true, devoted, and developing sense of wonder about the world. And it helps me to stay more intrigued about how things are going. And I often describe in interviews like this, Allie, that my deepest spiritual practice is to accept the mystery of things, things that I can't understand in this dimension and in the human form. Another one is compassion, and we hear a lot about this. There's books and books and books written about it, and 10 sermons every Sunday on compassion. And it's one thing to say we're in compassion. It's another thing entirely, though, to live open-heartedly and to let people be as they are, with a little less fixing, a little less judging, a little less hatefulness, just a true compassion. And there's a longer story we don't have time for today, but if we do this again, if you remind me, I'll tell you about, I believed I was fairly compassionate. I'd given myself an 8 out of 10 because of how much I value it. And then I got in touch when my dad was dying with, I don't even know what compassion is, because of the way I was harassing him to do things he didn't want to do, and trying to get him to drink water when he wasn't thirsty, and all sorts of crazy things. So I've had my own awakenings. The other one is confidence, and it's like, it's one thing to be confident. It's another thing to act confident. And confidence comes for me from a deep groundedness, like an internalized something beyond just this persona of confidence or something like that. It's something different for me. Courage. And I love courage and the word courage. And I get to work with some of the most courageous people I know, that even though in overwhelming times, that we've got some uncommon stamina to take responsibility for our part, for my own errors, my own mistakes in a situation, the courage to look at ourselves and not self-hate, though, not recriminate ourselves, but the courage to look at what my part is and to even know to say, even though I feel overwhelmed at times, that I'm going to keep my courage intact to say, somehow I know just taking one next step here is going to be okay. Creativity, of course, we hear a lot about that, and the use of our imagination. And I think it's powerful. And the psychology speaks about this in terms of how would I be if I wasn't in a triggered state right here? Who would I be with Allie if I didn't just interpret, how she didn't include me, or I thought she was rude to me, or something like that. So we have a great deal of creative energy that we can use to generate our own learning and to generate a lot of ways to solve some of the problems we have with ourselves and others. And we just do a little better when we keep some creativity intact to say, I've got to imagine something greater than this for myself. I've got to imagine how this may turn out better than I'm thinking it might. And then connectedness is the last of the 8 C's, which is deeply knowing that we're part of a much larger entity, and that our breath and our practices around that, inform us about that. So that's a long answer to one thing, honey. There's so much I'm into, honey, though. Immersion work. I still do the work. I still do quadrinity work through Hoffman. So we could talk all day about what I'm into, but I'm cooking on 6 burners. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I too love Dick Schwartz and the internal family systems, and the idea of having, and I'm seeing there's John on the line here. And I remember having a conversation with him once about, being sort of the higher self sitting at the table with all the other parts, because they talk about parts of, within you that have, that you want to make friends with and start to understand, maybe the envy within you, or the wounded child within you, or these different parts of our personality that when we can sit with them and start to include them and give them a voice, great healing can occur. And so I can only imagine Martha taking this and those beautiful 8 C's and creating something really, really powerful for the communities that you work with. Just so delighted. And what really got me excited is when I heard that there's somebody in IFS, or Internal Family Systems, that's writing a collaborative book with Dick Schwartz on, and she's an Enneagram specialist. So it was like the Enneagram and Internal Family Systems coming together, and that seems to be very interesting to me. I don't think it's come out yet, but I'm looking for it.
Yeah, and there's already certain collaborations around parenting. That's exciting about this, and other people will weave it in with 12-step, I think, and Enneagram work, and anything that we're part of. There's a way to take all of this and use it. And I think it's important today to mention a very specific something I've done just lately, which was I knew to do 20 some years ago. So part of my guidance since 6 years now, Allie, has been when I get still and kind of question what arena to go off into or where to lead. And the message is often back to basics, back to basics. And I've taken that to heart. So I went back to some of the texts that were very transformational to me, including the Science of Mind. So I'm doing a 365-day immersion into the Science of Mind. So every day I do a reading, and then I do a little contemplation with it, a little insight to it, and it's recorded and it's on the YouTube channel. So it's like 5 minutes, and that was a work that was important to me. So back to basics. I've also gone back to living untethered, the work that I did there, and this power to observe all of this that's going on, which has been very beneficial in the parts work. So I've also went back to a 7-step, it's called a release process, really. And it's very much in line with the grief recovery method. And it's 2 different things, but I got a similar effect from this that I did in doing that grief recovery method. And it's 7 steps that I do when I'm aware that there's a block. some energy block or something's kind of got its hooks in me, and my normal spiritual practice is not clearing it. I know I've got to take a bigger work, a deeper dive, and it's a 7-step process that Jane Hart, a teacher named Jane Hart, introduced years ago, 20 some years ago. And it was back to the basics of that. And I've used it recently very powerfully to get me out of some kind of stuck and blocked energies that I was aware of that my normal spiritual practices wasn't shifting. And they can, listeners can find that online through the Center of Enlightenment. And the 7 steps are laid out there, what they are.
So you and I talked a little bit before the show, and I said, well, at the end, you can offer a spiritual practice. And I feel like you've just given us all of these like little nuggets, these breadcrumbs, these pearls to explore. I mean, yeah, Michael Singer's work and the untethered life and this process that you do. Like, I love it when you said, when my normal spiritual practice isn't working, that just like, oh, you mean we can do something different? Just that is huge. What a blessing just to hear that, because
to take some responsibility for that, like a true purification process. And I see it sometimes, I see things simply, honey, like we wouldn't wait till our teeth start falling out to start brushing them. So it's like we brush and brush and brush. We do everything we can for our teeth, and we still need a root canal here and there. Or we may need a crown, and we're going to have some extra work. So the same is true in our spiritual fields too, honey. And Dr. David Hawkins' work, I've been in that work for years, and that was part of my back to basics, living a pathway to letting go. His book, that Letting Go is the name of the book, Letting Go, A Pathway to Surrender. And it gave another context for the map of consciousness and not suppressing, depressing, denying, and pretending feelings away. Yeah. And it was such an upgrade though for people that's been out of touch with feelings to think, oh, I've got in touch with some feelings. Now I've got to express all these feelings. And it's like, there's some of it's got to be expressed for darn sure. Spoken, written about, yelled out, screamed out, cried out, tantrum out, walked out, kickboxed out, swim it out, do whatever we can to move that energy through us. And eventually there's some part of the emotions we can witness that actually won't have to be expressed if we're on a solid enough seat. If we can keep our highest self in a seat of consciousness, those kind of deep emotions don't always have to be expressed too. Yeah. And I think it's, for me, the power in what I've discovered for me that's it's effective is it's both and. There's a time it's got to be expressed and spoken out, cried out, ranted out, walked out, whatever. And then there's a time to let it burn off, to let it be there and let it rise and pass without all of that too. And I'm real grateful and empowered in the fact that it can be both and there's a lot of power in it.
Yeah. Well, you've given us so many things to consider, and I know that for our viewers, that something, maybe it's one thing, maybe there's several things that, as Martha talks about, going back to these basics, these tried and true wisdoms, teachings, methods that she's circling back to, that maybe one of them's intriguing to you. So maybe it's time.
And that's the encouragement, though. It's like whatever your basics are. It's not, don't go back to Martha Creek basics, but go back to where you got the most uplift, where you got the most transformation, where you got a very solid ground to live and to work and to be and express yourself from, whatever made you better off. Go back to your own basics. These happen to be a few of mine.
Yeah. Well, and it's always good to try something new. And so, well, talking about something new, you have a show coming up, I hear, on the New Thought Media Network. Can you tell us a little bit about what your show's going to be about?
Well, buckle up, because who knows? It launches October the 11th. It'll be on a similar channel here in a platform. Everybody's invited, and I hope you'll come, and I'll get wonderful, beautiful people to get in there and pot stir with me and to uplift, and it's to serve those who serve and to get empowered teachings to the whole of the world. And I'll absolutely bring forth whatever I'm learning the most from. And, my highest compliment that I get from people, I get so much appreciation and grace extended me. And one of my favorite pieces of feedback to me is that I'm practical. So you can expect practical things from this show too, because that's absolutely my conviction, and it's got to be practical.
So
And
what will it be, interview style, or how's it?
Both. There'll be me presenting, like I may take people through the 7-step process, for example, to give an example of that, which will be like to really clear energy or unblock something to get us unstuck. It could be an interview where I come across somebody that I really want to hear from them or let them share their own life story. I'll absolutely be applying this internal family systems work that I'm doing. So it'll be a hodgepodge, honey, just like my life. The things, probably mystery school things and Hoffman Institute, all these things, self-defined leadership, how not to be a knucklehead when they are. I'll likely do a show. I was already thinking about it today, like these little one-liners, like one of some of my
Martha-isms, right?
Martha-isms, because somebody asked me for it. I just finished that Unity Faculty Institute training, the intensives for those people that are in seminary, and they wanted Martha-isms, and somebody had put them. Somebody had made up a document from listening to me, and it put all these Martha-isms out there, so I could send them one. So I'll do some Martha-isms here and there too.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Two of my favorite ones are: when you notice the horse is dead, dismount. And you can't make a bean plant grow by pulling on it. And that one has saved my life.
Oh my gosh. You are the perfect blend of profound wisdom, spiritual expansion, and humor. And I love you so much. And I am just so blessed to have you as a guest on this show. You give me all kinds of ideas for what I might want to do in the future. And I definitely want to have you back as my guest.
Please do. I love you too, honey.
How can people get in touch with you? And
MarthaCreek.com. The email's there, the phone number's there, so they can schedule time with me there. There's also a YouTube channel. So if they're resonant with anything I'm saying, get over there to that YouTube channel and listen to that and keep the work close to you in that way. So MarthaCreek.com will give them connections to all of it.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to Wayne and John and Cindy and all the other people that have been here live with us. And next week, you will not want to miss. We're going to be live at Unity Village in Missouri. And I know Martha's going to be with me, and Robert, the producer here at New Thought Media Network, and my regular producer, Reverend Michael, will be there, and a whole lot of other wonderful people. If you haven't been to the affiliated New Thought Network annual retreat, I highly recommend it. I've been going for over 20 years, and I always make a connection. I always hear something that my soul needed to hear, or my ego definitely needed to hear. Anyway, we're going to be broadcasting live. We've got a surprise guest. It's going to be someone there on campus at Unity Village, and I can't wait to meet them, and I know you won't be. You'll be shocked to see who it is and to connect. So thank you to New Thought Media. Thank you to you, and we'll see you next week. Mwah. Bye from the Growing Edge.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Home Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.